Time for the world news with Mike Walter.
Thank you, Phil. U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee Wednesday morning regarding the Benghazi attack last September. Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans were killed in the September 11th attack at the U.S. consulate in Benghazi, Libya. Clinton's testimony focused on the Libya attack. It comes after more than 3 months of Republican charges that the Obama administration ignored signs of deteriorating security situation at the consulate. Joining me now for more from Capitol Hill, correspondent Nina Donaghy.
Well, Mike, this certainly isn't how Hillary Clinton expected to spend probably her final week as Secretary of State. She faced very tough questions up here on Capitol Hill all day today, but the toughest came from Republican senators, many of whom are still accusing the Obama administration of a cover-up. Hillary Clinton defended her decisions surrounding the consulate attack.
Again, we were misled that there were supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that that was not the fact. And the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Senator John McCain also focused on why the facts of the attack on the consulate that left American Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 American colleagues dead were not clear, and why security was so low.
With all these warnings, all these things took place, we didn't have a single Department of Defense asset apparently available to come to these rescues. The American people and the families of these 4 brave Americans still have not gotten the answers that they deserve.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul going even further, suggesting Clinton should have been fired.
Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post.
Clinton's voice cracked with emotion as she spoke of the friends and colleagues who were killed.
For me, this is not just a matter of policy, it's personal. I stood next to President Obama as the Marines carried those flag-draped caskets off the plane at Andrews. I put my arms around the mothers and fathers, the sisters and brothers, the sons and daughters.
Before the House Foreign Relations Committee later, Clinton denied she was aware of any security requests from the consulate or its ambassador, and blamed lawmakers for not approving sufficient diplomatic budget requests for security, but said ultimately she's accountable.
As I have said many times, I take responsibility.
Even after all these hearings, however, it's still not clear why these repeated requests for extra security from the embassy staff and the ambassador himself didn't make it to Hillary Clinton's desk, Mike.
All right, Nina Donaghy, thanks so much. This will be the final time Hillary Clinton appears on Capitol Hill as the U.S. Secretary of State. And when it comes to appearances in the world, she certainly has made a lot. During her tenure, Clinton has traveled nearly 1 million miles to 112 countries, a record for U.S. Secretaries of State. Now consider how many her predecessors made. George W. Bush's second Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, made visits to 85 countries. His first Secretary of State, Colin Powell, visited 88. And President Bill Clinton's last Secretary of State, Madeleine Albright, also visited somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 or 98 countries, I should say. And to illustrate the importance of Asia and the Mideast, Clinton visited there the most, 32% of the time. Europe was a close second, coming in at 30%, followed by Africa and the Americas. For more on Clinton's legacy, whether she will be tarnished by Benghazi and what we should make of the attack, we're joined now by David Pollock. He's a senior fellow at the Washington Institute. Thanks so much for joining us, David. Let me get your sense of the testimony today, because there's a wide range there. She was defiant at times, then her voice choked with emotion. We got to see the full range of Hillary Clinton today.
Well, yes, I think this was actually an extraordinarily lengthy and detailed inquiry into a particular incident of this kind, and all done in full public view. It's, I think, quite unusual. I would say that the focus on just this one incident is excessive in my own personal view. I think it's broader questions of not only of diplomatic security, but of the longer-term implications or after effects of the American and NATO intervention in Libya that are of greater importance. And so, in a sense, in my own mind, I would have to say that the focus on just this one incident, very painful and tragic and difficult for Secretary Clinton as it is almost a substitute for having to deal with the bigger questions of U.S. policy in the region in North Africa. And those are very, very hard questions that are not even included in discussion of this one incident.
Well, let me kind of let me get at what you're saying, because there are larger questions, and you're touching on that. And yet, a lot of what we see on Capitol Hill when it comes to these sorts of things is almost political theater. Each side hoping to get on television with their responses, not really getting at the heart of what you're talking about here.
I agree, and I think that when you say political theater, I would have to explain my own view about that, which is that this is a case, to a significant extent, I'm afraid, of partisanship. And of course, that's part of democracy, and that's part of having a loyal opposition, and that's what helps make the American system work.
Well, what about her comment, though? That what does this really matter? I mean, she really is kind of getting at the heart of things, which is what's going to happen as a result of this? Are we going to see changes? And isn't it really moving forward what's most important?
I think that is what's most important. I'm not sure I would go quite as far as Secretary Clinton did in the testimony that I heard, in arguing that it doesn't matter anymore what happened in the past. It does matter, because we need to think about the lessons to be learned from that incident, not just, as I say, about security at U.S. embassies, but about U.S. policy and U.S. planning for the after effects of the great instability in the region as a whole,
David,
and how U.S. policy plays into that.
David, I'm going to have to end it there. I apologize, but some great insights on your part. Thanks so much for joining us from New York. Certainly.
Thank you. A pleasure.